Hey everybody, thanks again for joining me on this video. My name is Pat from Like Attracts Like Mentorships, and today I want to talk about something that comes up very often inside of those mentorship sessions, and that is after someone has been doing the work for a very long time, there comes a situation or an event that leads them right back to what they feel is ground zero. They feel that they are going backwards. They don't understand why, when they were doing so well, all of a sudden this thing happened, and now you're right back in that emotion that you already did all of that work to release and purge. Why does this happen? So today I want to talk about the phases, the cycles of why this happens, and what is required, the number one thing that is required to actually release the energy that you have been working so diligently to get rid of and remove and integrate into your life, so that you actually hop into the timeline where you live existing as the version of you that you came here to be. Stick around, we're diving in deep when we come back. All right, so does that story sound familiar? Have you gone through something in your life that you suffered through for a very, very, very long time? Being that energy, seeing it everywhere, watching it show up here in this relationship, over here, this job, this choice. And then all of a sudden you suffered enough through that it led you to ask really deep questions about why this might be happening to you and what you could do differently. Through a little bit of resistance to that part, there was probably a moment where you ended up finding some clarity. You did some research, you dove into podcasts, you went and read some books, you did some meditation, some mindfulness practices, and you began to find some objectivity on the story that you were telling, why you were doing what you were doing, some inner honesty, some deep diving shadow work. You did the work. And you started to see a little bit of a difference in your life. You started to get a little bit more clear. Things started to shift in a positive way for you. You finally started to feel a little bit of release. And then what happened? Boom, out of nowhere, something comes that represents the exact thing that you just spent the last however long of your life trying to clear, trying to heal, and trying to remove from your experience. You've been showing up as the version of you that you wanted to be. You've been making very difficult choices. You've been setting boundaries, and yet still, whack, out of nowhere, here comes the situation, and you find yourself purging again. You find yourself emotionally attached again. You find yourself angry again. You find yourself really sad again. And the number one narrative that pops in almost every mentorship session where this is a reality is, why am I going backwards? I was doing so well. And there's a complete and utter judgment of the release of whatever emotion that is. So today I want to offer some clarity for you on that aspect, because you are not going backwards. You are not further away than you were. It was not all for nothing. You are that close. And the one thing that is preventing this person or you from shifting into the frequency where you actually are living that life is realizing that we can't judge this release. This is where it kind of, the rubber meets the road, because we want to judge it because we feel like we've come so far. But then there's this new thing that represents something else, and it seems like, oh, everything we've done was for nothing. So when we respond in that emotional way, we judge it and ourselves. It is the judgment of it and this release that repeats it on you again, because it was judgment that put it there in the first place. It was not believing in ourselves or feeling scared or feeling triggered that put this emotion that we're trying to purge there in the first place. All of those experiences that created this internal chaos that we call emotional attachment. That's what was inside of you as you were acting in the first phase of this, which is you were being it. There was no separation. It just, you responded and reacted in your life as that emotion. Trigger all the time. And then as you did this work and asked those inner questions and took a deep dive into your life, you found some clarity and perspective. And that's where you hit a higher frequency of consciousness, where you were separate from the emotion. You were able to observe it and able to actually navigate your life, releasing the experiences and the story that you've been telling. And then the third part of this is realizing that it wouldn't be coming out of you again in this way if you weren't ready to now finally release it. You have been doing so well. You've been unbelievably crushing it for a really long time. And now you're actually of the frequency where you are at the vibrational resonance to be able to release the lower frequency energy. We know this goes up the scale of consciousness from fear to love. So if you were living in the fear and judgment of that emotion you're trying to purge, and you've been doing the work consistently and progressively to hit a frequency of love and allowing, which is not the same frequency of fear, that means that now this fear energy, which is still in you, can now be purged and come out of you. It can now be released if you choose to let it go. And you can only choose to let it go from a higher frequency or perspective of consciousness / awareness. So when it comes out of you after you've been doing the work for so long, it's not a negative thing. You haven't been going backwards. It was always there. You are just now of the frequency that you are not it anymore. You have perspective and you are resonating in a place of awareness that will allow it to be released and purged out of you. You are a consciousness emotional filter. And the more you focus on something, it expands. So when you've been focusing on doing all the work and creating this mindfulness practice of high vibrational resonance, now you are that. So there's something called a final boss, where that energy, as it's being released, seems to create another scenario for you to walk through in the world to really prove that you are the thing that you have been working towards. When the fear is the greatest in the world, in your reality, especially when it hits you when you least expect it, because you've been doing so well, and all of a sudden here's this thing, here's this relationship came back out of nowhere. This person hasn't texted me in years, and here they are. I'm about to lose my job that I kind of didn't like anyway, but I'm terrified of what I'm going to do next. All of these things will happen after you've been doing the work for so long. And it's not by anything other than design, because you're ready to let it go and you're ready to walk in faith to a new choice. If when this emotion comes up, you judge it again as being bad or going backwards, then it will push it back down, because again, it was judgment that put it there. It will push it back down, and you will then again repeat a loop where you are going to have to purge it, and you're going to have to do the work, and you're going to have to do well for a while, and then it's going to put itself in front of you again. This is a repeating loop, this life, this reality that we live in. And it responds to either love or fear. And we get to choose which one based on how much faith we have in ourselves and this process. So if you are doing the work and you're finding yourself in a scenario that seems to be just like all the other scenarios, it's not. It could be, and most likely is, what you would call a final boss. And it's asking for you to make a choice of love, that the new version of you that you've been trying to be, that you have been being, make the choice from that version of you. And as the emotion comes up and purges, don't judge it. It is the judgment of it that will repeat it for you. So stay the course, stay dedicated, stay committed to who you want to be, set your intentions, and then make choices through that, no matter what is presented to you, no matter what it looks like or how scary. You're ready. It wouldn't be coming up after all of this if you were not ready for it. So this is what I wish for each and every single one of you. If you would like to navigate this process with me, the one-on-one mentorships are now open. There's a link wherever you're listening to this or watching this. You can schedule a 30-minute, absolutely complimentary clarity call to see if we are a match and if you are ready to actually move finally out of this part of the process and into the next phase of your life. Until next time, have an amazing day, a wonderful night, and I'll see you then.